We're in week 6, and we are. This is our last work week prior to the final, and you'll notice that it's a lot less information to take in. But it's very important. I don't know how well you will follow all of this in these documentaries, but I want you to know that most Europeans, or quite a few Europeans of all age groups, would be able to follow much of what's being talked about. And so I'm trying to help you. We as Americans are considered leaders of the Western world because of our military superpower status. But as a culture, we are extremely isolationist. And I don't mean just like that we want to be isolated. Actually, in fact, we have bases almost everywhere in the world. But we are intellectually and culturally out of the loop with the rest of the world, and even the world that is more linked to us culturally, the Western world. And the topic of the refugee crisis and the rise of far-right parties and the origins of all of this and the demographic shifts within the Western world, unfortunately, is the topic right now. And whatever one thinks of Trump, you have to understand that he's a part of a global movement. And in fact, that's how European far-right people have seen it. I had some friends come from Denmark that were horrified of the idea that Trump would be elected because they felt that it would empower their far-right. And they were talking about neo-Nazis. Now, I'm not calling Trump that. But I want to point out something. His stance on immigration and on Islam and his economic nationalism resonates with the far right and extreme far right, which is why that they look to him as an inspiration coming from the United States. And you had some characters that you may or may not be familiar with, such as Le Pen, who barely lost in France, and there was some other candidates in different parts of Europe that were, I would say, more to the right than Trump, but they were all kind of like riding that surge. And you need to understand why and what that means. So what I'm trying to do is not push a certain type of politics down your throat. I want you to understand that this topic is a thing. I do have my own strong opinions about all of this, but in the classroom, I think it's important for all my students to be exposed to a wide range of ideas and come up to your own conclusions. Now, but at the same time, I have a discussion having you guys address the stuff that's talked about in there. And I mentioned in there that that this is sensitive. The way I'd rather have you pitch this is to make a case for the arguments that are taking place, or have a discussion about what is being discussed in the world, more than you take an opportunity to try to shove your own opinion, or attack people about what you think about the sensitive topic of refugees and immigrants. Okay, and I want you to really utilize the information that's covered in these documentaries about where we're at, because the Cold War, both World War II and the Cold War, essentially got us to where we're at. And I have 2 clips I put underneath this announcement. You may not watch them, but one is the introduction. I want you to. One is the introduction to Casablanca, the famous old film, American film. And what you have is, it takes place in World War II. You have the American Humphrey Bogart, and then you have Europeans that are resisting Nazis. You have Nazis inside of the drama, and it's all taking place in Morocco. And what's lost on most people when they watch the film is that this entire European drama, the love story with the politics about freedom versus fascism, in the whole movie takes place in Morocco, and Moroccans are barely even noticeable in the whole entire film. So why is it in Morocco? Well, it's a colony of the French. And so actually much of North Africa is at the time. And, many people talk about, how many Arabs supported Hitler and the Nazis, and there's sometimes I hear, some news commentators or other people in debates about how, almost associating Islam with Nazism. Well, what everybody forgets is that, for the most part, the Third World was being occupied and exploited by the Western, by the free world, by the West. Okay? That's just a fact. And so many people did look, their oppressor wasn't the Nazis, it was Britain or France, just for example. Then in the intro clip, it shows the refugee crisis the other way around. How in World War II, Europeans were fleeing into Africa because of war. Did the Africans have a choice in this? No, the Europeans were able to do this through colonialism. So this is kind of ironic when you look at this compared to what we're seeing now, and kind of look at what war does. War creates refugee problems, situations. And, I don't have time in this class to go over international money policies that basically drive poverty, I think deliberately, in third world nations, so-called third world nations, and economic development, such as in Africa. And the invasion of Iraq caused massive amounts of refugees. The invasion that Obama did in Libya created a lot of refugees, and again, just massive poverty. It's a problem. Now, then, last thing, I have a clip of Nasser. Nasser was a very popular Egyptian leader, maybe one of the most popular in his day. And you might want to say, why am I posting this? Well, he makes a joke about the Muslim Brotherhood trying to get him to make all the women have head coverings, the hijab. The hijab is the traditional Islamic head covering. And what may shock you about this is the way in which he sounded. He was against the idea of trying to make women wear head coverings. During the Cold War, the United States and the West was not worried. They were more worried about ideas that were going to be popular in the Soviet sphere. In Muslim-majority countries, even beyond the Middle East, what was popular was pan-Arabism, socialism, and even sometimes communism. The United States and Western Europe saw that as a threat because that would put them, all those nations, into the Soviet sphere. So supporting Saudi Arabia as the leader of the Islamic world, what we did then and now. I mean, Trump just gave Saudi Arabia $100 billion military package, just recently. This goes back to a deep relationship. The irony is not just that certain Islamic extremist parties now have been a result of the Cold War, such as we saw in Afghanistan and the creation of Al-Qaeda, but Islamic countries, the rise in popular Islamic political ideologies throughout Muslim-majority countries, I would argue, is an indirect result, if not sometimes a direct result, of actually the West's involvement in the politics. The things have changed. The idea of all women wearing head coverings and all this kind of thing is something that has happened more in modern times, in recent decades, than it was even back in the 50s. And again, why? Because other political ideologies were being discredited. And that's a long, complicated discussion. Whether you think that that's good or bad is another discussion. If you're curious about it and want to have a talk with me, when you get a chance, just give me a call. I can elaborate more. I think it's kind of interesting now as a side note, that the U.S., our foreign policy has so much aligned with Saudi interests and Israel's interests. It's a little bit more complex in deciding what the U.S. Really has in terms of interests in the Middle East. I mean, think about it. We demonize Iran for being an Islamic extremist state, and yet we're so close to Saudi Arabia, which doesn't even let women drive. So you have to kind of question what's really going on. And so I don't believe in this necessarily clash of civilizations. I think whether you look at all political parties, there's this realpolitik going on, as we learn. And that's been a part of the Western framework. And I just think that we have a lot more, if you're going to be involved in politics and get involved in these debates, I'd beg you to just continue to research more and be well educated and take some perspective and keep your humanity while you're out there too. So that's all I have to say. Again, if you need anything, contact me. And this is it for the week. Okay?